On a lively evening at Union Central Terminal, the station buzzed with the usual chaos of a weekday rush. The vast hall was alive with hurried footsteps, muffled voices, and the metallic hum of trains pulling into platforms. The domed ceiling, adorned with intricate constellations, stood silently above the commotion, an unchanging witness to the ebb and flow of countless daily travelers. Among the throngs of commuters was Lena Carter, a poised and confident woman in her mid-30s. Lena's sleek navy blazer and pencil skirt hinted at her professionalism, while the practical leather satchel slung across her shoulder added a touch of elegance. Her stride was purposeful, the rhythmic clack of her heels striking against the polished floor blending seamlessly with the station's cacophony. Lena wasn't just walking, she was observing. Her sharp eyes scanned her surroundings, taking in details most would miss. She moved with a quiet authority, one that wasn't immediately obvious but was impossible to ignore. Yet, it wasn't her grace or focus that caught the attention of two officers stationed near the ticket booths. Officer Daniels, a seasoned cop with a bulky frame and an air of self-assuredness, nudged his younger partner, Officer Blake. "Over there," Daniels muttered, motioning toward Lena with a tilt of his head. "Something about her doesn't sit right." Blake hesitated, his unease evident. "She's just walking through," he replied, his voice uncertain. "Trust me," Daniels insisted, already moving to intercept her. Blake followed reluctantly, his eyes darting nervously as they weaved through the crowd. "Excuse me, ma'am," Daniels called, stepping directly into Lena's path. His tone was laced with forced politeness, though his body language betrayed his sense of authority. Lena stopped, her expression calm but inquisitive. "Yes, officer?" she asked, her voice steady and professional. Daniels folded his arms, a smirk playing on his lips. "Just a routine security check. Mind showing us some identification?" Lena's gaze didn't waver. "A routine check," she echoed, her voice carrying a subtle edge. "And what exactly prompted it?" Daniels raised an eyebrow, his smirk widening. "We'll get to that. Let's start with some ID," he said, motioning toward her bag. Lena remained composed, though her eyes narrowed slightly. She reached in her satchel with deliberate care, retrieving her ID and handing it over. Daniels inspected it, his eyes narrowing as he read the name and credentials. "A government worker, huh?" he remarked, his tone skeptical. "What brings you here?" "I'm conducting official business," Lena replied, her voice clipped. "Is there a problem with that?" Before Daniels could respond, Blake stepped forward hesitantly. "Maybe we should let this one go," he suggested, glancing uneasily at Lena. Daniels waved him off. "Relax, rookie," he said dismissively. Turning back to Lena, his expression hardened. "What's in the bag, ma'am? Anything we should know about?" Lena's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'd advise you to reconsider your next move," she said calmly but firmly. Daniels chuckled, mistaking her restraint for compliance. Without waiting for permission, he unzipped her bag and reached inside. His smug confidence evaporated instantly as his fingers brushed against something unmistakable, a federal badge bearing the emblem of the National Intelligence Bureau, along with a holstered firearm. Daniels froze, his face paling as he registered the gravity of his mistake. Blake's eyes widened in disbelief, and he took a step back, visibly shaken. Lena retrieved her bag with measured precision, her movements exuding authority. "Now," she said, her tone icy, "care to explain why you decided to target a federal agent?" Daniel stammered, his earlier bravado replaced by nervousness. We thought." "You thought wrong," Lena interrupted sharply. Her words carried the weight of unshakable confidence. "Or perhaps you assumed I wouldn't challenge your overreach?" By now, a small crowd had gathered, their curious murmurs filling the air. Several bystanders held up their phones, recording the encounter. Daniel shifted uncomfortably under their scrutiny, his earlier arrogance nowhere to be seen. Lena pulled out her own phone and began recording. "Name and badge number," she demanded, her voice cutting through the tension. Blake, eager to defuse the situation, complied immediately. "Officer Blake, badge 3284, he said, his voice barely audible. Daniels hesitated, but eventually mumbled his details, avoiding her gaze. "You might want to brush up on protocol," Lena remarked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Because this," she gestured toward the scene, "isn't going to end well for you." The fallout was swift. The following morning, clips of the incident flooded social media, sparking outrage and calls for accountability. News outlets ran the story as a glaring example of bias and abuse of power. The city's police department issued a statement promising a thorough investigation. Daniels faced immediate suspension, while Blake, though reprimanded, reached out privately to Lena to express his regret. "I should have done more to stop it," he admitted, his voice heavy with guilt. "This isn't just about you or me," Lena replied. "It's about ensuring this doesn't happen again." Weeks later, Lena was back at Union Central Terminal, walking with the same quiet confidence that had unsettled Daniels. As she boarded her train, her phone buzzed with a message from her superior. "Mission handled." "Well done." Lena smiled, her gaze fixed on the horizon as the train pulled away. Another battle won, another step closer to change. As the train raced along its tracks, Lena sat by the window, her reflection faintly visible against the backdrop of the sprawling cityscape. The weight of the past weeks lingered in her mind, but it wasn't a burden. It was a reminder. Her encounter at Union Central had become more than just a viral moment. It was a spark that ignited a broader conversation about accountability and systemic change. Scrolling through her phone, Lena read the countless messages pouring in. Strangers from across the country thanked her for standing her ground, for turning a moment of injustice into an opportunity for reform. Advocacy groups reached out, eager to collaborate. The ripple effect of her actions was undeniable, and though the path forward was long, Lena felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her thoughts drifted to the officers. While Daniel's arrogance had led to his downfall, Blake's quiet remorse lingered in her mind. She hoped his apology wasn't just an act of guilt, but a step toward understanding the power he held and the responsibility it carried. The train slowed as it approached her destination, and Lena gathered her things. As she stepped onto the platform, she noticed the curious glances of a few commuters, their recognition of her unmistakable. She nodded politely, her composed demeanor unwavering. For Lena, the journey wasn't over. She knew change didn't come from one viral video or one confrontation. It required persistence, collaboration, and courage to confront systems resistant to scrutiny. Her quiet vow was simple: to use her voice, her platform, and her position to challenge the norms and inspire action. As she walked away, the crisp evening air filled her lungs, and a small, determined smile played on her lips. This wasn't just the end of a chapter. It was the start of something far greater.